the great interruption that we are a part of right now has suddenly given me this gift of time, which I haven't had in decades.
Right.
So to then distract myself from this great opportunity to hold space, to
Yeah.
let something emerge that is maybe not of my own making, to be a conduit for whatever energy is moving, and to also listen.
Hello, dear friends and damn givers. Welcome to the Let's Give a Damn podcast. I'm your host, Nick LaPara, and this is the show where I sit down for meaningful conversations with people who aim to build fewer walls, longer bridges, and bigger tables with their lives and work. These are people who want to leave the planet better than they found it. I truly hope today's conversation gives you hope and pushes you to give more damns than ever before. 646-328-6414. Friends, let's take this relationship to the next level. That's my number, and I want you to have it. We just launched this cool thing, and yes, you'll be texting directly with me. Here's the deal. Social media is a lot. It's too much, so frustrating, so full, and we miss out on most of what people are trying to say and do on social media. It's too damn crowded. So let's text. We can talk about whatever you want, and I'll be able to text you when new podcasts come out, when new updates about different things that we're doing come out, and you'll be the first to hear updates on the forthcoming book, TV show, nonprofit, all of that shit. And again, you're texting directly with me. We can go back and forth. It'll always be me. That number again is 646-328-6414. Text me, and it'll send you one or two automated messages. And then once you're in the system, it's all me from here on out. And for the last time, 646-328-6414. And if you're listening to this while driving and can't jot that number down, just go visit the show notes at letsgiveadamn.fm, or you can go to the link in our Instagram bio. It'll be there as well. It'll be in the bio section of Instagram. It'll be on all of our social medias. I want to chat with you. Let's take this to the next level. I'm excited about this. I hope you are as well. Okay, my guest this week is truly one of the raddest people I've ever had a chance to talk with, interact with on this podcast. I mean that. Her name is Elizabeth Marvel, and you may recognize that name from movies like True Grit or Lincoln, or from shows like Homeland or Fargo or House of Cards or Law and Order. Elizabeth is an accomplished actress, and we do talk about her work during our chat, but we spend most of the time discussing the state of our country, the importance of protesting and getting involved, and we spend a bunch of our time talking about the fact that she is not, nor has she ever been, on social media. Think about that. Do you know anybody who's not on social media at all, nor has ever been? And we talk about that, and we talk about how it has allowed her to be more free and more creative than, well, probably most of us. Side note, Elizabeth is one of the main characters in Marvel's new series, Hellstrom, that comes out on Hulu on October 16. I want to make sure you know about it, and I want to make sure that you check it out when it comes out. Y'all, I loved this conversation. It moved me, and I hope it'll move you as well. So let's get right into it, shall we? As always, you can email me anytime and for any reason at hello@letsgiveadamn.com. And now you can text me anytime and for any reason at 646-328-6414. And here's my conversation with amazing damn giver and the only person I know that has played a United States president on TV, Elizabeth Marvel. Let's go. Elizabeth Marvel, welcome to the Let's Give a Damn podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm so thrilled that you are here with me, here with us. You just said, how are you spending your pandemic? Right? We'll start there. You just said you're not at your normal home.
I am not at home. We normally live in Red Hook in Brooklyn. I had been shooting this crazy Marvel superhero show in Vancouver for 7 months.
Right.
And I watched this pandemic start coming across the world from my apartment in Canada. And early March, I was like, I got to go home because they're going to close the borders. So on the 15th of March, I went to the producers and said, put me on a plane.
Yeah.
I went home. and my husband picked me up, and we drove to a farm in Vermont where his family lives. We just drove to family, and we've been here ever since.
So you didn't even get home?
I got
Okay.
home to throw old clothes into the
Pack a bag.
laundry and pack new clothes was basically what we did.
What a wild few months, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we just stopped. We've been here on this farm, and our son is going to school in the living room. And here we are.
Amazing. Are there plans yet for continuing to shoot that show? I know a lot of productions are opening back up slowly but surely.
We actually finished. It's gonna drop in October. So we were fortunate. We finished. There were a couple of extra little things that they were trying to get that they didn't, but it was completed. But no, filming has resumed.
Yes.
There are a lot, and it's I'll tell you, it's no fun.
Yeah.
I don't envy the folks that are back in
No,
there
I mean,
right
they're
now.
having to do like COVID tests like every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And it's just, everything is just, we're shooting a much smaller production, but we're shooting a pilot for my hopefully TV show that someone will think to buy. And it's like, even just setting up this small crew, this kind of skeleton crew is like, okay, we've got to be extra, extra cautious. Nobody wants to say that someone got COVID and passed away because they worked on your show. Like that's not something anyone wants.
Well, it's also for crazy making that we can, figure out filming, and we can't figure out school. We can figure out the NHL, the NFL, baseball, but we can't figure out school.
Yeah.
We
could spend a couple hours just on
just talking about that,
couldn't we? Right? Like we've got 3 little kids, and they're all 40,
how old are they?
5, 7, and 8.
Oh man!
So in a month they'll be 6, 7, and 8 for 3 months. So they're pretty close together. That was not planned. That was just part of God's plan for us in the universe. But anyway, they're like 30 feet away in front of me, and they're just rocking and rolling. And here in Nashville, I don't even know how things are in different places, New York and otherwise, but they sent around a survey, a couple times saying, hey, if we reopen, very, limited, kids have to wear masks all day, blah, blah, blah. Like, do you want to send them back? And man, we had to sit on that for quite a few days, but in the end, we decided not to send them back, at least until, 2021, because I mean, literally, like all the fun parts of school are gone, right?
Absolutely.
Like they have to wear a mask 8 hours a day. They
That's
can't go to recess because that's when kids are spitting on each other. And now you have like just a few kids in the classroom.
Yeah.
Your teacher's attention is probably divided, understandably, and they're trying to still do some virtually. It's just going to be a shit show. It's not going to be fun either way. And I was like, I don't want to send, like we're making it work here. We rearranged our entire home so that all the kids could have their own rooms, school rooms and stuff. And but
we're incredibly fortunate. But do you want your kid to be a part of the experiment?
Exactly.
I don't.
Exactly.
I don't. And what's the rush? We'll wait. We'll just wait.
Yeah, I understand certain families. We live in a very diverse neighborhood in Nashville, and there are so many families that have to, because for months, I know some of them had to leave kids at home while they go work because they're two income families, and they can't not have the other income. So they have like a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old watching the rest of the kids, right? And that's just what they have to do. So I completely understand. So I do as well feel very grateful that we can even say, nope, we're not sending them back. We'll figure it out. It's not ideal, but we'll figure it out.
Yep.
Wild stuff for sure. So what's interesting about, preparing for this conversation today is that, and we'll get more into your social media and internet blackout in a bit, but usually with well-known people, I can just Google names and up comes what they ate for lunch, that time they walked out on their balcony half dressed and they got caught on camera, and everything else about their lives and work, right? And when I type in your name, there's nothing. There's a few articles.
It's
and then
just
obviously your biography, you like your work, and that's about it. And so I'm super fascinated about that. But because of that, because all we have out there is Wikipedia, could you just begin? I always love to get some foundation framework, because as we get into how you have given a damn in the past and in the present and all of that,
Sure.
I always see connections. I shouldn't say always, but usually see connections between some ways that my guests have grown up, or things that have happened to them, or things that didn't happen to them, that have kind of shaped and molded them into who they are today. So go back as far as you want to, but what's some of your story? Where do you come from? What is the sort of environment that you grew up in that kind of caused you to go in the direction you've gone up to this point in your life?
Sure. Well, I grew up in a very small town in Pennsylvania, and I was raised, my father was Quaker. Uh, so I was influenced by the Quaker faith. I can't say he was a very devout Quaker, but my grandfather was very old school Quaker. He would use thee and thou, and
Nice.
yeah, yeah. And my mom was not uh, engaged with faith really, but my mom was definitely a person that had a deep sense of, leaving the world better than you found it,
Mm,
being of service, helping your community. She was a volunteer worker. That was her life. She worked for the Red Cross. She worked for Meals on Wheels, and whenever there was something that somebody needed, she was first in line. So I grew up as a little kid going to a lot of people's homes with Meals on Wheels with
mm,
her. And some of my earliest memories is being a little child sitting on, people's kitchen floors, talking to them, because most people were shut in that we went to take meals to, a lot of elderly people, a lot of vets. And so I can remember being very small and going into homes, and just just the mere act of communicating
mm,
was so helpful
mm.
and joyful. And I was taught that through action at a very early age. Um, and then as I got older, I was very fortunate to work with many artists, to be influenced by many artists in New York who were not just artists, but also creative activists. And saw that, one's work, even even as an actor, could actually
Yes.
be useful for more than, just promoting oneself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. Is is any faith part of your life still, or is that
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a very lazy Quaker. But yes, I mean, I engage with, I go to meeting. Sometimes I go regularly, sometimes I'm very lax
Sure.
about. But yeah, the tenets of the Quaker faith are just so practical, and it's really hard.
Mm,
Although I have to say, one of the greatest challenges, and one doesn't automatically assume it's such a challenge, but to truly be a pacifist in one's heart is a daily challenge to myself that I work at and fail more often than not. Because to truly hold nonviolence in your mind and your heart towards everyone
everyone.
is really, really hard. It's really hard to get to
Especially
a
yeah,
mm,
especially in a country like ours that
mm,
that
and a
seems
time
to
like ours.
really get off on violence. I mean, we
Mm,
have from the very tippy top of our country and our leadership, we have, I mean, literally just 3 days ago, um, our president, recalling to mind at one of his campaign
he's not my
rallies.
president, but yes, that
I
man.
yes,
Mm,
the man in that role,
mm.
um, recalling he never talked about the fact that it was a journalist who was doing his job, Ali Velshi, a
Yeah,
wonderful journalist. He said this guy got hit by tear gas
and rubber bullets.
and
Yeah,
rubber bullets and law.
yeah.
And he said law, yeah, rubber bullets. It wasn't tear gas, rubber
Yep.
bullets. And he called it law and order. So we have this country that is,
Well, when you have a pseudo authoritarian, that's the kind of language that's going to spew forth.
it's wild, but it's wild that gets met with. I can understand how some I hope to God I never get 1,000th of the way there, but I can understand how some people turn into megalomaniacs, how they turn into authoritarians, because I mean, look at his coddled life that he's had. Like everybody's always given it, right. But then to see crowds of people that Donald Trump would never hang out with, would never give them the time of the day. He hates them. Donald Trump hates poor people, and a lot of poor people love Donald Trump. And so to see them like get, foam at the mouth, to see that sort of, I guess we're getting right into it, but to see that sort of rhetoric then inspire the Kyle Rittenhouses to cross state lines to go in to protect, Kenosha, Wisconsin, in that evening ending in, several people being murdered by this young kid. Like
that's primordial rage, right? He just taps right in. It's always been so. It's always been present in mankind. The permission to release the hatred of the other, the validation of hating the other. It's
which is why nonviolence as a core tenet of life is so
really hard.
It's really hard, but it's so important because of what you just said. Each one of us are capable of doing that. That's the problem, is that we're all one bad decision away from doing that, which is why we don't have
practice,
right?
And it's a daily practice. Yes.
It's not just not owning weapons or whatever. It is so much more. It is controlling oneself. It is because there are steps to get there. There are steps that Kyle Rittenhouse had to take to get there, or these other people that have been in the news lately that have murdered, that have taken lives, that have done horrendous things. It takes a ton of work. It takes days and months and years and decades to train oneself to not get there, right? Because we can so easily get there and snap, and then we're the next, person on the news, even if we think we're doing something right.
That's right. Righteous anger. Yeah. No, it's a daily practice. And, it's like wearing a mask. It's like, I don't necessarily wear a mask for me. I wear a mask for you.
Yep.
I don't practice nonviolence in my heart and mind totally for me. It's for you. It's for my son. It's for my husband. It's for my community. It's Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of her, she would always say, we can disagree. It doesn't mean we have to be disagreeable. So let's work on ourselves. Let's begin with ourselves and then move outward. And part of that is tempering our rage, because there is so much to be righteously rageful about. Yes. But then we just burn it all down.
What are some of the other, a lot of this we'll come back to, but what are some of the other tenets of the Quaker faith? Admittedly, I'm a Christian, a weird type of Christian, but I don't admittedly don't know some of the sort of core things. Probably some of them are similar to what I adhere to myself.
Yes, I mean, it is Christian-based faith, but really, like the two big rules or requirements, I should say, not rules, but requirements to engage is pacifism and service. So if you can't kind of line up behind those two things, I mean, it just makes sense. And then when you go to meeting, you sit in silence in a community, and holding silence in a room full of people is an awesome experience.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then if you are moved by whatever you want to call it, the light within and without, the spirit, God, however you feel it, see it, understand it to be, you stand and share with the community. And that's really what goes down. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of social activism. There's a lot of community work that goes on. And, but it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward.
Pacifism, nonviolence, and service sound a lot like Jesus to me. And
depending on your version, man.
Well, it's sadly we have to talk that way, right? Because it seems pretty clear cut to me.
It sure does.
What Jesus was about.
Yep.
And yet we have people that are just willfully misconstruing, straight up lying, twisting every which way to to try to make Jesus out to be someone that would not have welcomed the foreigner, would not have,
Right.
Jesus was someone who welcomed the foreigner, lifted women up, loved children, did all of these beautiful things and loved children in a way, obviously, right-wing conservatives love their children, but they're training them, right? I bring that up because they're training them not to be, people of
compassionate,
service, compassion, lovers. They're training them to be, little militia members, really, in so many ways. And I have to point out that I knew that Quaker was Christian. I was pointing out that I am a different kind of Christian than that, but I just don't want people to think I'm an idiot. But I have not, I have not spent a lot of time in the Quaker. So I'm part of what's interesting about what you just mentioned, where I assume, based on what you just described, is there a pastor? Is there someone that's in charge?
There are elders.
Okay.
Which doesn't imply age, although it seems.
No, sure. Okay. So I'm Anglo-Catholic, so I'm part of I'm like teeter-tottering between Anglican and Catholic, and which is the exact opposite of Quaker. And I mean, a lot of the same similarities. What I loved about what you just said is there's a lot of holding silence. There's a lot of room for uncomfortable ness, right? Like, we don't have to speak all the time. We don't have to fill this space with loud music and smoke machines and always having something going on, which is an effort to like conjure up the spirit, right? It's it's conjure up emotions and like get you to do stuff or say stuff or whatever. And people are really uncomfortable with silence.
Yep.
And I love that we share that in our two different faiths, because in my little kids, like, I'm not forcing them to do anything, but we bring them along on the journey. And I see my job as a parent as seeing good things in the world, pointing my kids to it and saying, what do you think about that? That's my main job as a parent, is to see good things and say, what do you think? And see the bad things and say, what do you think about that? But I don't want to coerce my kids in anything. But so far, they're getting it. Like, they're understanding God and what God wants to accomplish in the world.
These new people that are here now, these new people that are coming are amazing.
They're going to outdo us. I think they're going to,
as long as we don't like fuck it all up before they get old enough.
And that's our role, right? I talk about legacy a lot, and it's on the one hand, in a very selfish one hand, it feels weird to be working all our lives for something that we won't get to see the fruit of, right? And that's happened. That's not unique to us. That's all of history.
Yes.
And more so back then, when things got done a lot more slowly, right? We can actually speed movement and community up in so many ways, right? But to think that my job, our job, your job, my job, is to make life a little bit better for those little ones, your son, my kids, so on and so forth. And that's how the world gets better. I won't get to see, man, I work my ass off in the work that I do, and I'm creating all these things, and I'm busier than ever. And I don't get discouraged. I'm thankful that I don't get discouraged, knowing that all of my work is going to way outlive me. Hopefully.
Absolutely.
And I might get to see a sliver of it, but I'm gone, and they get to take up, the race, and they get to keep going.
Yeah, that's part of the crazy giant leap of faith and hope and joy that we take as parents, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So you are not on, let's talk about social media.
It's going to be a short conversation.
Well, maybe, because I think you may have a lot of, in a world that almost virtually requires everyone to be on, let alone someone with so much eyeballs on her work, and let's start with this. How did it start? Were you never on social media, or were you on and said, fuck it? You said never on.
Never.
So where is that going back to your Quaker roots, or was that you just saying, or you saw prophetically, like, I don't want to get involved in that?
Yes, I think it was a little of that. It's a little of both. I mean, all of these things, life works holistically, right? So it's all one. So, yes, I did not grow up really watching television. I was not a video game player. I didn't engage with machines much as a young person. And then I spent a long period of my life. So, my father died, my mother moved to Sicily, and I was sent to a boarding school. And so, I was between this crazy boarding school for the arts and Sicily. And during those years, and then I went to Juilliard and followed the Grateful Dead and like sort of had this time, this walkabout period
Yeah,
of my
for
life.
sure.
Um, and during all of those years, I didn't watch television. I just didn't really tune into uh, sort of the zeitgeist, the what was happening um, communally with communication and I've just always sort of thought that other people's opinions about myself, and also because I'm a creative person, um, it's none of my business. It's none of my business to know what anyone else thinks about what I'm making.
Wow.
And as far as in regards to my personal life, I don't want to know what anyone else thinks of what I look like or who, the life choices I'm making. That's between me and my higher power and my community. Uh it's and I don't care. It's not that I don't
Yeah.
care. It's just not my business. I just firmly feel that in my bones that it's not my business. And I'm also well, not because I'm a creative person, because I'm a person. I'm very sensitive, you know. I would get really distracted if I paid attention to opinion, especially if it was negative opinion or positive opinion. When I was a very young actor, I remember my first lead role in a new play at the Public Theater. And I read the review, and it was very positive.
Hmm.
And I was trapped in this opinion that just kept screaming in my brain when I tried to go to work because I took my focus away from the work and I put it somewhere else. And it was so distracting and confusing for me. And it was a great experience because I learned immediately, like, no, 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 no. Do not put your focus anywhere other than the task at hand. You must always be in the work, the task at hand. And I feel that way about my life too, is like, the task at hand. Okay, my son's been fed. My husband's doing his work. Okay, the dogs have been walked. The food has been gathered for the
Yeah.
day. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what do we have to do? What is important? Tuning into, I don't know. I also, I have so many friends that all I see them do is do this
Yep.
all the time. And
Yep.
I think, what is happening? What are they doing? Because I like to just be sort of, almost empty headed, to wander about, walk, if I have the luxury of being able to take time. Because that's also the great luxury in my life is time.
Yeah.
If that's the gold in my life, and that's what's been amazing for my little family and my this creative machine is that
Mm-hmm.
the great interruption that we are a part of right now has suddenly given me this gift of time, which I haven't had in decades.
Right.
So to then distract myself from this great opportunity to, as we were referencing earlier, to hold space, to
Yeah.
let something emerge that is maybe not of my own making, to be a conduit for whatever energy is moving, and to also listen to voices, other than my own or other than my small community, to tune in to what is happening in our world through conversation, through direct engagement. um that's where I go.
There is so much fucking wisdom in what you just shared. I'm just like over here, just like drinking from a fire hose. Here's the thing. It's not, nothing you just said is novel. Nothing you just said is groundbreaking or revelatory. And you're onto something. Since you're not in all of this, one of the big things that people are watching right now is The Social Dilemma on Netflix. And it's this whole documentary on the horrific things that are happening because of social media, right? And it's not anecdotal at all. It is, they literally interview former, Facebook employees, former Google employees, former Pinterest employees, all these people that, they created the monster.
Yeah.
Now, so many of them left because of what they had created. They left because they felt so terrible and they saw what was coming and they left, and now they're being interviewed. So again, it's not like just looking at statistics or like running numbers or whatever. That's all bad enough to see how much time we waste and what's going on. Horrible things are happening because of social media, but then you get these people that created it in saying, we fucked up. Like we really did. We created a monster that there's no containing it now.
Yeah, you can't put that genie back in the bottle.
No, there are billions of people every single day spending hours and hours and hours on these platforms. Before social media, people would just spend on the internet. They would go look at blogs. They would look at, and that was, I guess, a little bit better because it wasn't so much communal as much as it was, I need to go learn something. So I have all these blogs that I read and all, maybe that was better. But now I love how you pointed out, like, it's none of my business. And it truly isn't, because we can only have so many people in our relational circle, right? The numbers I've seen say 150 max, like 150 people that get who you are, even at varying levels. So not all 150 get all of you. Sure. 150 get parts of you, and some get all of you. I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody in the social media space. Very few people know who I am, but even I have like 5,500 Twitter followers, right? And like 3,200, Instagram, and people comment and they share and we talk. And at the end of the day, I like these people a lot, but so many of them, I'll even call them here's the thing. I'll refer to some of them as my friends.
Right. Yeah. That's so confusing to me.
And I'm an off the charts extrovert. So if I've met them in real life, and many of them I have, some of those have resulted in real life friendships. If I met them, I'd go in for the hug, and maybe not now, but I'd go in for the hug and we'd have a good time. Right. But so many of my friends don't give a shit about me. I don't give a shit about them. And we shouldn't be interacting with each other. Like, I don't have the capacity to care what you're going through or what you're about, what you ate for lunch or where you went to work or what trip you're on. And yet I do. I continually engage in it. I continually open the app and I scroll down, and you say, I'm on my way to Myrtle Beach. And I say, cool, have fun. That was 5 seconds. Like, did they need me to affirm their trip to Myrtle Beach?
Well, that's also a very confusing thing, right? Is this desperation for affirmation. And that
refresh. Did I get any more likes? Did somebody share it?
That breaks my heart for that. That's heartbreaking to me. Again, I live outside of it. So I'm speaking from abstraction. It's not experiential. I don't know what it's like to do what you're talking about. But when I see it, it breaks my heart, especially in young people, this desperation for affirmation, because that is something that each of us have to be on a journey to discover within ourselves. We must be able to self-affirm, or we are dead in the water. Yeah. I feel. And so I'm so proud of my son, who's 14 and does not engage with any of it and never has.
Is it his choice?
So far. So far.
That conversation will happen at some point, right?
Oh, it happens. Yeah. I mean, we're in constant conversation.
But it's not like you're like, blocking
you can't
him.
No.
He's probably, hopefully, if he's grown up in this environment, hopefully he is seeing some of the fruits of this. I mean,
well, that's what you were saying is you show your children positive things and then ask them what they think of it. And then I think what you do as well, which is what we try to do, is you also do those things yourself. So you show it in action. And so your children can watch their parents enacting those things, right?
Yeah.
Honorable behaviors,
Yep.
respectable, um, and then hopefully they'll model them.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the
That's the
hope.
hope.
Last week something crazy happened. My kids and I were going on a date. We were going to see this like crazy drive-through light show here in Nashville. A bunch of it's a big music town here, right? And so a lot of the people that aren't on tour anymore and need work, they built this amazing drive-through light
That's
and
so
sound show.
cool.
So we went for the preview night, and anyway, we're on our way there, and I was like, okay, the kids are staying way up past their bedtime. Hell, let's just make it a thing. And so we stopped at the grocery store, and I was gonna pick up these vegan ice cream bars that we love, right? And so we get out of the car, we mask up, and we walk in, and as soon as we're like right before the door in the parking lot, still a woman had fallen out of her car, and you could tell it wasn't like it wasn't an accident. It wasn't, or I shouldn't say it wasn't an accident, but it wasn't natural. Like she was passed out before she even fell out because her leg was still up in the car. And two or three people had already started gathering, right? And so at that moment, and this is not to pat myself on the back, I'm just like sharing this because it is, I think we have these opportunities all the time as parents, right? And so at that moment, I'm like, okay, it's 9:00 at night. My kids are in this parking lot with me. We're sort of in a sketchy part of town. We just passed the grocery store and we stopped there. And so I just said, kids, stay right here. I rushed over. The lady she has a pulse, but she's not breathing. And over the next 5 minutes, we tried to keep her alive when it was my turn to do chest compressions. She died. She died in my arms. So she had a pulse and then she didn't, and she wasn't breathing the whole time. So now she's 5, 6, 7 minutes. Fire department came. They got into action. They did Narcan up her nose and did way harder chest compressions than I was doing. Like it was actually scary because there's no way that she was like 90 pounds soaking wet. Like you could tell that it was probably sort of a drug overdose sort of a thing. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to like pass judgment on her, but it just looked like that.
It just is what it is.
And he was going, and anyway, they got her, they revived her. But
wow.
All of that took place in 8 minutes. And afterward, my kids and I have been talking about it on and off for the last few days about the importance of not just being aware. We've got to walk around with our eyes open all the time, but then, okay, your eyes are open. You see shit going on. Now, what are you going to do? Because eyes open isn't enough. Like I could have easily said,
get in the car. Let's get out of here.
Get in the car. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Or there's 4 people already over there.
That's right.
Let them do it.
Yep.
And I didn't. And I have to live with the fact that someone died in my arms, and thankfully well, I shouldn't say, I don't know if she's alive today, but she came back to life. But we get those opportunities all the time. And I would much rather I've been just mulling over it the last few days about like, I want my kids to see way more of that than they want to see me like just, just refreshing. And
that's right.
And unfortunately, they have seen me too much. I have a lot. I mean, during this pandemic, I'm an Enneagram 8. I am a go-getter. I'm a disruptor. And so during this time, when I lost all of my work overnight in March, because all my work it was mostly consulting, and it was in the event space. I was speaking publicly, doing all this stuff, and all that went away. It was gone. Yeah. So I had to like get more new consulting clients, and I've started a nonprofit and 2 companies so far during the pandemic. So amazing. I could take a page out of your book. I mean, I really could learn from the faith that I follow in the Quaker faith, and just like sitting more in silence. I do it once a week during our virtual church gatherings. And I also try to meditate each morning, but I am so high strung, like high strung. This little guy is weed, and it helps me. I mean, I have to take it almost every day to like just calm me down enough so I can like think clearly. All that to say, I've been thinking about what happened the other night, and my kids we've taken our kids to March for Life, March for what is that march? March for Our Lives. March for Life?
March for Our Lives.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And they've been to Black Lives Matter rallies. Like, I want them to remember Papa and Mama doing that, which we do it quite often, but we could do it more because I apparently have time to do this over, scroll and refresh and
well, the cool thing about all of
people that don't give a shit about me.
Sure.
That I would
choose. The great thing about like all of the social media phone distraction nightmare is, you just like with any practice, you can start anytime. You can start right now.
Yeah.
You can change that behavior at any moment. It can begin anytime. And then it can fall away and then it can begin again. That's a beautiful thing about starting a practice,
So what about this though? So in today's sort of economy, in this culture, everybody and everything tells you have to be on social media to build a business, build a community. Like I have, Let's Give a Damn is not just a podcast. It is a forthcoming TV show, and I'm writing a book, and we started a nonprofit in 2 years. 12 to 24 months from now, we're going to start a social impact venture capital fund and all these things that we're working on.
Fantastic.
And a lot of that just, again, the culture tells me, therefore I'm telling myself that I have to be in all of this all the time, getting my hands dirty on social media, building community so that I can actually build those things.
Okay. But what does your heart tell you? What does that still quiet voice inside you tell you? Does it say you have to do all of that all the time?
Well, probably not. Probably not. Especially since people built amazing things throughout history and they never had this until 10 years ago.
Without a fucking cell phone.
Yeah.
But, is it a business tool? Yes, it sounds like it's a very effective business tool. Can you use it for business? Yeah. And maybe cut out the scrolling and the liking and the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe there's a happy middle ground.
I think there are mindful behaviors around cell phones that one can apply. And it'll make you feel better.
Yeah.
And also just have periods of time throughout the day that you just put the motherfucker down.
Yeah.
Put the motherfucker down. There's a good thing to do is have a bucket by the door to put the phone in. And so the phone's in the bucket. So if anything else, because you never want to be that asshole with the phone on the table.
Oh, You
know what I mean? So
I've been there and it's horrible. And
we've all been there.
I look at myself doing it. I get out of myself.
And you're like, who's that asshole?
That's so horrible, Nick.
That guy's such an asshole.
Yeah.
So put the phone in a bucket, have it there. So at least you have to cross the room to get it. So at least it's going to make you aware, like I'm going to the phone now instead of that weird unconscious. But anyway, that's one. But to your story about this woman and your reaction, that's something that I think is so important to unpack for a minute, because I think at this moment of communal disassociation in so many ways that's happened, it's such an interesting, it's such a crazy time we're in, and we've been in this time before. It's just a new mode of it.
Sure.
Of like this disassociation from community and this complete engagement with community and showing up for things, which is so hopeful and exciting for me as well. And we have a pandemic. And we're not getting any true scientific information from our government. We don't know what to believe. So we just have to keep sourcing the science. We have to keep going back to the scientists, because those are the facts. That's the information we need. But we're getting a lot of mixed messaging, and it's a very confusing time. And if you do have, immunocompromised people in your life, if you have people who are elderly, if you have people with pre-existing conditions, you do have to live in a manner of protection. You can't get in the streets as eagerly as you may want. Although protest is a very important factor in all of our lives. And I think now more than ever, and I think in the next month more than ever, maybe the next few months, we may all just have to fucking get in the streets.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to, we've already started because we're parents, we can't both go. So who is it going to be? And how is it going to be? And where is it going to be?
Yep.
I think we all need to start having those conversations. We have to make our plans of how we're going to vote. If we haven't already voted absentee, what is that day going to look like? How are we going to manage it? We need to have a plan. It's funny because I've done a lot of these crazy TV shows where I play like presidents, big governmental people, right?
Right.
And on those sets, we get a lot of consultants from the government. And so I've met, all kinds of Secret Service agents, FBI, CIA, attorneys general, because they show up, they come, and we talk with them. And one of the things I'll tell you that, and this has been over like the past 10 years, that I consistently hear from people is, as far as the world we're in, I'm like, what do I need to know that I'm not hearing? They're like, have a plan, because the grid might go down, because your little plastic card may not pour out the money when you go to get, have a plan, have a go bag, have some water, have a plan for your family, wherever you are. I say that about sort of all things right now, like have a plan. How are you going to engage? How are you going to vote? But then also with your kids, like if you can't get in the streets because of health issues or X, Y, and Z, there are so many things we can do. We can take what knowledge we have and educate others. We can advocate for legislation. We can call our representatives. We can write letters. We can build coalitions. We can use that social media to tweet at our legislators or email them, and specific state, local, federal laws we can engage with and just flood with emails, handwritten postcards. There are so many ways we can phone bank. Phone banking is a great way to take action.
Easy.
It's so easy. And there's so many. It's like we don't have enough fingers to, stop the holes in the dam right now. So there are just so many actions we can take from home in front of our computers instead of scrolling through who liked your fucking lunch today. You can write some emails to, so I, protesting is massively important, but there are and community service is massively important, and fundraising is massively important, but there are many other ways. If you can't put your body on the street, which many of us can, and if you can, you must, and you got to have a plan around it. But if you can't, there are many ways you can work from home to advocate for change.
You are saying all these things that I think you've done them all, right? These are all things that you've done. You're not giving.
Well, no, not all of them. I've never run for office.
Well, okay.
Only on TV.
Okay, only on TV.
There are things that I haven't
President
done.
Elizabeth Keene.
That's right.
And almost President Heather Dunbar, right?
That's right. Almost. But because ultimately these are family issues, right? It all comes down to family.
It affects each and every one of us.
And what are we doing? And what are we teaching? And how do we want to be? And
well, I what's so funny is growing up, I grew up in a very, very unhealthy, toxic, conservative Christian upbringing. And the only time that we heard about any politician, first of all, there was only one politician we ever heard about, and it was the president. That was it. We never heard about local politics, no council members, no mayor, no nothing. The only time we ever heard about a politician was to worship them or demonize them, depending on who it was, right? And it was always worshiping the Republican and demonizing the Democrat, right? The baby killer versus the pro-life, blah, 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 And I regret so much growing up in a home like that. I regret so much not being shaped and formed to be active.
Yeah, but look at you today, though. Look at what you're doing.
Thank God. God.
So maybe that is the product of that,
Maybe. It got me so, as I grew up, it got me so riled up that I wanted to change that for myself and for my family.
And it's energized you in a way that maybe you never would have been. Maybe you would have taken a lot of it for granted.
Maybe. Great observation. Great observation. No, it's good because I don't have any hatred toward my upbringing. There were so many things that went wrong. I grew up in a very abusive home, but even today, I hadn't really looped the lack of political activism into this bunch, but I think I can now, thanks to what you just said. But I really am grateful for all of it, all the pain and the suffering and the weird shit that went on, because it did very it did shape me into who I am today. I probably would be completely different. Not probably, I would be completely different had everything gone. And so now what I'm trying to do with my kids, because they're not experiencing that, right? That's is like, okay, I want them to feel like I do when they're 37. And so, but I'm not gonna treat them like shit. I'm not gonna hurt them physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So how can I, and I think it's about love. I think it's about, showing them love, receiving their love. And again, my ultimate goal as a parent is just pointing them to the good, the bad, and the ugly in the world and talking through it, and not making them feel, not calling them names, not abusing them in any way. Not shaming them. Yeah. I mean, I'm so grateful for my wife, because I do have some, I've never hurt my kids or anything like that, but I have anger. I have outbursts every once in a while. I yell occasionally.
And, oh my God, every parent does.
Yes. Well, my wife, man, she's a fucking angel. Like, she's just so good. She's so good at this. And I'm just so grateful that I got partnered up with her to raise these kids, because I think it would still be much better than I grew up in. But man, I need all the help I can get.
Well, sometimes our parents, I think, sometimes parenting is, to show us who we don't want to be, what we don't want to do. Sometimes it can be useful that way too. Yeah.
And as great as my kids are being raised right now, they're going to have those things. They're going to have those things. They're going to look and be like, man, I'm going to take all that good, but Dad, when he did this and when he did that.
Yeah.
I hope there are things that they don't like about what's happening, and that they shed themselves, rid themselves of later on. I love that. So let's talk about, I love this. Let's spend a couple minutes on back in 2016, around election time. You did this really cool thing with some other women called Cut Piece for Pant Suits.
Yes.
I love this. And again, I want you to tell me more about it, because all I was able to read was, one article in the New York Times. But tell me about, where did Cut Piece for Pant Suits come from? Why were you all out there on a freaking cold, day in the middle of the winter? And what was happening? What did it mean?
Right. So it originally was a piece that Yoko Ono did, and I can't give you the date, sometime in the 70s, as sort of a radical feminist action. To take power back. And also, I think, commentary on the weaponization of our society. And, it's also something that came up that I immediately thought when you talked about running to that woman, is because our society is so weaponized. There is something in me that does a hiccup when I have that immediate because in New York, God knows, we have plenty of opportunities.
Yes.
People are all over the street all the time, to reach out and help our brother or sister, get up or keep breathing or, get a meal. And do you open your hand or not? And it's a question, because our community is so weaponized that it's probably my greatest anxiety in America, in living in this country, is I have a deep and abiding fear of guns. And it's something, it's the one of the biggest fears I have for my son. And, and I'm a woman of privilege. I'm white. And so, I have a 14-year-old boy. I do not have that kind of,
in the grand scheme of things,
anxiety.
You have relatively little to worry about.
Oh my gosh. I do not have to have the anxiety when he goes to get a soda at the local deli, that he may not come back. I don't have the anxiety when the cops pull me over that I may not survive. And yet I do have great anxiety. So I can't even begin to imagine the level of anxiety that communities of color are dealing with. But it is something that I wrestle with. So anyway, this piece came out, this woman, Joanne Akalitis, who was one of the founding members of Mabu Minds, she and her husband at the time, Philip Glass, and Ruth Malachek, a group of New York artists in the 60s and 70s that were this company called Weaponized that was a brilliant avant-garde theater company and real, advocates for change. They did all kinds of community work through theater and beyond. And a lot of their work has always been politically based. And she called up a bunch of her, devoted feminist friends to all wear, solid colored pantsuits in representing sort of Hillary Clinton's uniform.
Sure.
After the 2016 election. And we stood in the park in the middle of Manhattan during lunch hour when it gets very busy. And we all had very large, very sharp scissors in our hands. And we stood silently holding the scissors out. And people were encouraged to come and cut pieces of our pantsuit off until we were naked. And we stood there for hours, trusting complete strangers to cut our clothes off until we were naked. Well, almost naked. They didn't cut.
Sure.
Well, they did. Some people had their bras cut. And it was a radical gesture. It was a gesture about, the ongoing dominance of the patriarchy. It was a willingness to trust our fellow citizens with, our lives, basically turning it over for them to make the choice, for them to engage in this action of, stripping this protection off of us, which is kind of what had just happened in the election. So that was really what it was about.
And what kinds of conversations were you all able to have maybe during that time, but also in the subsequent, days? And I mean, obviously it got some attention because of how in your face this for all the reasons, middle of winter, letting people cut your clothes off, like the whole thing, everything around it. Like, what were some of the kind of reactions to it? I mean, New York's a crazy place, but even this probably stood out to a lot of people.
Absolutely. No, people were flabbergasted. I was amazed and moved that we had no violent reaction. We had no aggression. We did have we had other friends of ours surround us sort of on the periphery, not close, but on the periphery as sort of guardians.
Just make sure. Yeah.
Just in case shit went down.
Yeah.
That they would be quick to act or quick to call 911 or whatever was necessary. But I think we all were profoundly moved and deeply affected by this act of trust that we engaged in on both sides, and how many of these, business people just having their lunch in the park.
Yes,
took time, and people were weeping. It really shook something loose in a lot of people, and it was a moment when that kind of gesture, I think, was very helpful for a lot of people to engage with, because there was so much feeling of helplessness and confusion.
I think more than ever, artists of all shapes and stripes should be using their art, not exclusively, because we still need art for the sake of art. We still need fun. We still need things. We still need lighthearted things. We need some flippancy, right?
Yeah.
But more than ever, artists should be thinking about how they can impact society, impact culture, change the direction we're headed in through, performance art like this, whether it's a song, poetry, book, TV shows, movies, Broadway.
Well, especially at this moment, man, because the paradigm has shifted. It's like when the great interruption passes, what is it going to be?
Yeah.
It is a moment of being able to completely recreate these modes.
Yep.
And I'm fascinated to see what people are making, what they make going forward, because it's something that I keep correcting, and I hear others correcting, is, it's not about getting back, it's about going forward.
Yeah.
We're not going to return to something.
No, God, no.
We can never return to what it was. So where are we going? I'm really curious to see.
That conversation is so interesting to me because, I grew up I grew up overseas. So I was born in New York, grew up in Guatemala, then spent 6 years traveling the world. And so I didn't return here to live until, my mid to late 20s. And I have not felt comfortable here, not a day in my life. I am a United States, I'm a dual citizen, but I'm a United States citizen. And this is home, technically. I was born in Rochester, New York. But I don't feel comfortable here. And a lot of it is just because I don't understand a country, a culture, a people that can very clearly see things that are wrong, things that are blatantly wrong, things that are verifiably wrong, and they don't do anything about it. Now, I know that's people in general. That's not just United States of America, but we're especially fucking good at it. Like we are good at worshiping this document called the Constitution that has been amended 20 something times. We call this the most perfect, political document ever. And yet it did not recognize Black people as a whole person. It called in the document, it calls Native Americans savages. In that document, there are zero references to a woman. Every reference to a person in that document is to a white landowning male. No women at all. And so that document is hundreds of years old. Systemic racism is as clear as the day is bright, and yet we have millions of people saying systemic racism doesn't exist. We have a for-profit prison system. Our healthcare is absolute shit. It's garbage, and yet we say people want it, right? The highest political holders in the country say people want this. They want the uncertainty of not knowing if they can pay their bills. They want hundreds of thousands of people every year going bankrupt because of medical bills. And so what's interesting about this time is my family and I have talked very strongly about moving for a few years, going to a place that is, and not to run. I don't think it's, again, I've never been a runner. I've always been like run into the fray, run into the mess. But I also see the toll that this is taking on my family and I. I see when my 4-year-old went to preschool last year and they had to do a shooter drill first day of preschool.
That's right.
I wept like a fucking baby because I was like, what is my 4-year-old just, starting this new adventure, school. And in his first week of school, they have to do active shooter drills.
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely insane. And so, part of me wants to move, go to Amsterdam, go to Berlin, go to Lisbon, go somewhere that is more equitable. People are happier. Healthcare is not an issue, like all those things. Or, which is what you just said a few minutes ago, which is like something new is happening here. This pandemic has utterly and undeniably shaken the very core of our nation. And things will not be the same afterward. Not saying that I'm going to see any if I stay here till the day that I die, that I'll see any real tangible big movement. I hope to God that we will see that. But I think things are going to speed up a little bit. I don't want to sound naive because of looking at past, our history.
Sure.
But what do you think about that? Do you think things, we kind of got into this talking about art, but at every level, I mean, we have the, like them or not, we have young, vibrant women leading politically now. I mean, talk about the firebrand that is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Talk about these young people that are saying, okay, no more old white guys or old white women leading the charge. Like we have to take charge, right?
Yes.
So I see something different and I want to be hopeful, but I'm also like, fuck this place, like do you struggle with that?
So understand. Yes, absolutely. We are in constant conversation of, is it time? Is this the moment that and a very similar feeling of not to flee, not to go forever, but to pause, to step away, to look at it from a distance.
And that's
sometimes
important.
That's the best. It's very important. And also living abroad is a very important thing to do, especially for a young person, to have time in another country, in another culture. It's awesome because it's, again, it's a holistic experience. We're all in it together, not just our nation, our world.
Yeah.
And now more than ever, it's a one world experience.
Yeah, for sure.
So why not? So yes, we definitely wrestle with it. The template that I really use to look at, which helps me to look at what's happening in America, is addiction. It's like an addict that is incredibly sick, that's had a very long run, that's been able to keep it going for a very long time, probably has OD'd and revived many, many times, and gone in and out of recovery and never been able to make it. And now they're hitting the worst bottom that they've ever. And they're either going to die or they're going to receive grace, and they're going to learn a new way to be. And that's where it feels like we are finally, I mean, I thought we had been there. I think my mother had thought we had been there. I think her mother thought we had been there.
Yeah.
But I feel like we may finally be hitting bottom. And, with addiction, you pray for the car accident.
Yep.
Because you have to have the car accident for the but the person may die in the car accident.
Right.
It's highly likely that they're going to die. If they don't die, they may have a shot at complete transformation.
Yep. Yeah, I use this example all the time. I'm so glad, like, we're tracking. Like, I always talk about, the alcoholic that does not fully admit that he or she or they is an alcoholic.
That's
and
right.
So they can't get help. You can't get help until your mind,
change.
Body, soul, spirit, everything agrees. I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict, and I need help. Then you can go to the meetings. Then you can get the help. Then you can receive the hugs. Then you can receive the help.
And you can do the work.
And we're not. That's the problem with this country. I actually had one of my really conservative friends that I love engaging with. He said the other day, we're on complete opposites on most things, but he said something that, because we always go back and forth, and I love it. He says, Nick, the problem is our country is too big. This country is too big. If you look at, and I went there.
Point.
Like, was a country ever supposed to get this big? Look at the big countries in the world. Most of them lean or are all in authoritarian. You need that megalomaniac to get up and say, I'm in charge of this, right? Blah, 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 blah. And either and they completely polarize usually. Look at the countries that are happiest right now in the world. There's a couple of things. One is they're run by women, or very progressive men, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw that out there. But on a very practical note, but from what we just said, they're smaller countries. They're more manageable.
Yes.
They're 5, 10, 15, 20.
Absolutely.
I think Germany's like 80 million. So that's at the, like.
Well, after this election, we may be dealing with some secession.
Yes. And I would welcome it. I would welcome it.
I mean, it may not be
those people.
No,
because we're too goddamn big, and we need to get to a manageable size so that we can actually pursue justice and equity for all the people we're in charge of, not 350 million people and growing. Like, it's only getting bigger.
Absolutely. No, it is the unmanageable great experiment. And there is a lot of truth in that. And we'll see. I mean, we may end up as several countries instead of one.
Yeah.
And that may be the solution. And it's time to put all of these options on the table and together, move forward and not feel, because something seems divisive, it doesn't have to mean, it doesn't have to be division. It can, space between can be just that. It doesn't have to be separation, negation. It can just be space.
Yep. Well, I hope, no, I totally agree. And I hope that if you and I both end up staying in this wild, wild country, that I end up in the same country as you whenever we start. So we can give a damn together.
That's right.
Okay. So as we begin to wrap up here, a few practical things. So, as people learn about you from our conversation and from the barely a couple articles about you that are out there, they'll see that
I've done a lot of interviews.
There you go.
Can
they
find
go on
me.
YouTube.
You can find me
out there.
That's right.
You've been very active, and I would love to spend, maybe during another conversation we could spend more time, because you said something at the beginning about how you left home, this sort of Quaker environment. You went to the big city, right? And you're around all these actors now, and you, whether purposefully or just by the providence of the world, like you ended up being around a lot of more activist minded, folks. And so all through your life, you have, you've attended protests, you've led protests, you did the cut piece for Pant Suits, you phone banked, you have, gathered signatures, all this stuff. Right. And then a few minutes ago, you talked about you and your family are already thinking about the upcoming inevitable protests and different things that are happening, who's going, where, why, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you take care of yourself and prepare yourself for things like that? Because you've already shown us that, I think one of the advantages that you have on most of the people listening, if not every single person that's listening, is that you have removed yourself from this sometimes good, but generally toxic thing we call social media. Right. So that may be one of the big things you've already done for yourself, is never even gotten to be part of that. But what are some other practical things that you have done to feed yourself, to prepare yourself for when it's time to act, for when it's time to give a damn?
Well, I do engage with several organizations, Physicians for Reproductive Health, and NAMI, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. And I advocate for them. I engage with them. I fundraise for them, and for both of those organizations, so much of it is just reaching out. Like this September is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, and that can be as simple as like, think about people in your life who are struggling. We all have them, if not ourselves. If we begin with ourselves and we're struggling and we're in pain and we're in darkness and we're in hopelessness, extend a hand, reach out. Don't put on a false front, but seek solace from another or from the organization, because there are so many local groups that can help. So, just as far as life engagement, I think that helps to prepare one for these bigger moments of when history will say, where were you and what did you do on that day? When your children are older, they'll say, Dad, what did you do? What did you do on November 3rd? What did you do on November 8th? What did you do? And, how are you going to answer it? But also, be thoughtful. Do you have to invest in a flak jacket? Do you wear a helmet? Think about it. Where are you going? Where are you putting your body? Again, there are so many ways to help, so many things to do, and they can be as simple as, donating food to a food bank, getting winter coats for people on the streets. Like, that is a real big action. That is life-saving. It's huge. So, all of these, the thing is there's so many ways to be of service. And they don't have to be, screaming in a bullhorn, although we need those people. We need them. We need those bullhorn screamers. But we also need people gathering cans for food banks.
We need to, in the midst of all this social media thing, whether people stay in or they pull out a little bit or pull out all the way, like we need to remember that throughout history, most good deeds have been done without any eyeballs on them, right? Like nobody ever saw it. And we've got to be okay with that.
You don't need to take a picture of yourself gathering cans for food
I'm so annoyed at, I'm so annoyed. There's this new, I'm so glad you're not on social media. But like, there's this new, like,
I also don't know, like, where does everyone find the time? Like, where does this time come from? Someone explained to me, like, oh, but you do it when you go to the bathroom and you do it when you're cooking. And it's like, wow, it takes all of my energetic faculty to like cook a meal. Like, I have to really concentrate.
I think we would probably realize how shitty of a quality of life we have if we like stop doing it all, right? Like what is, okay, so you do it while you're cooking, which I've never done. That's really weird. But how much is your meal? Like your meal is taking a hit. Your meal is taking a hit because you're not paying attention to it. Food is life. And is your family getting a 75% meal instead of 100% meal because you decided not to pay attention to it?
It's an interesting
you're going to spend 12 minutes in the bathroom instead of 2 if you're on your social media.
Totally. And that's not good for you.
No,
that's not good for you.
No.
But also, I know for me, I mean, I'm always feeling under the gun to get everything done, but I still need time to daydream. I require it. My brain requires just empty airtime. I need space to let it just float around.
Well, I think you're not alone, Elizabeth. Like, we all need that, and we're not giving that to ourselves. I can't imagine how many more amazing things we'd be creating, we'd be making, we'd be putting out into the world if we had the time to just stop and think, stop and daydream without speeding that up because we've got to check Twitter in 5 minutes because it's been 10 minutes, if I look throughout history, the kinds of incredible things, like, sure, we're creating some really cool shit right now. For
Absolutely.
Sure, right? But
Absolutely.
If you look back at these people that created some of the most outrageous, amazing things that weren't even there was nothing, at least now we've got technology that people can build on, right? It's not really that amazing when somebody builds a new app because, well, the foundation was already there. When you look back hundreds and thousands of years ago, people are creating these things that there was no precedent for it. They had nothing to go on. They were building this thing out of nothing. We can't make those things today because we don't have the brain power. We don't have the focus to make things. We don't have the focus to really create. And when I look at all the things that you've created, you've been in like 30 TV shows, 30 different movies, like a dozen or so, Broadway and off-Broadway productions. Like, I'm sure you would not have been in all of those. You wouldn't have had the capacity to because you don't get invited to do other things if you didn't do a good job in the previous thing, right? Like, your industry is such that if you fuck up enough times, you're not getting asked back.
No, you're off the list.
Right. And so even just looking at your body of work is a testament to, okay, clear head means I can really get into these characters. I can really focus. I can really create here. And I'm worried. I'm worried about not so much about myself. I think I have a fairly good discipline, but I am worried about myself. But I'm really worried about the people that I see that have so much potential to give a damn, to create, to build, to make. And
so you begin by, what is that famous? I think it's Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world. So we all, I what I have to say today is, don't start your day by looking at your phone. Try to keep it off as long as possible and make a plan to vote.
Make a plan to vote.
Make a plan to vote.
I think that's again, I want to talk for another hours with you. I think that's a good place to stop for now. Like, make a plan to vote. We are, 75% of the listeners are in the US. The rest are all over the world. And so 75% of the people in here, let's just say a few of them are too young to vote. So 70% of the people listening to this show right now,
people too young to vote can encourage those who are older.
They can
to make a plan to vote.
Make sure you're getting out. Make sure to tell your parents. Make sure to tell your aunts and uncles and your
That's
cousins.
right, because it's their
your
world.
Neighbor and everybody. Like, literally, if you're listening and you're not 18, go up to everybody you know that is 18 and say, "Do you have a plan to vote?"
That's right.
This is literally, and I don't think I'm using hyperbole here. I don't think I'm taking this too far. This may be the most important election of our lifetime. Like, we have an incredibly toxic, horrible person that has assumed this office, and we need at any and all costs to get him out. And so it is vitally important for us, each one of us, to have a plan to vote, to be ready to go. There's already, early voting has already started in some places.
In many places.
There's no excuse for you not to cast your vote on this time around.
And it feels great. It feels great to hold that power and that engagement in your hands and to participate. It's a good feeling.
Let me end with this question for you. And I'm excited. I haven't actually asked it. We've done 160 episodes, almost 170. For the first 100 and something, I asked this question at the end, and then I kind of wavered from it and just kind of let the conversations end where they ended. But I'm excited to hear your response to this. So the question is partly a hypothetical scenario where, many, many years from now, you're going to die. That's not hypothetical. But the hypothetical part is that I'm still around for some reason, and I am giving your eulogy. So I was chosen to give your eulogy.
Wow.
And all of your family, your friends, the people you've worked with, the people you didn't meet on social media because you weren't there, everybody has gathered in this huge room to celebrate and mourn your life. And
yes,
I've been asked to give your eulogy. In a few sentences, what am I saying about your life on that day?
Oh, boy. I would say I would like to be remembered as someone who helped work for access, for care for everyone, that that I helped change the public perception of mental illness, that I helped make women's reproductive health a family issue, an issue for humans, not just women, that reproductive health involves men as much as it does women, that it's a human issue. It's family planning, it's family health. It's so much more than what the Reagan era turned it into, and that I led a life rooted in moral goodness.
It's a great legacy.
That's what I shoot for. Yeah, a day at a time.
If you keep it up, I'm sure that's what will be said many years from now.
And that I knew how to tell a joke.
And that she had no idea how social media worked, even at that point. Man, I am so envious. I'm gonna figure out.
Gosh! But it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm such a Luddite. I don't even know what half the terms people use mean. I don't know what things look like. I don't know what they involve. But
if I wanted to torture you today, I'd start showing you TikToks, horrible TikToks. You probably don't even know what that is.
I really don't.
Amazing.
I really don't, but it's blissful ignorance.
Very, very last question. What are you excited about right now that you're making? I know you just talked about this Marvel thing that's coming out in October. Where is that going to be on? Where can people go watch that?
So that's on Hulu. It drops on October 16th. It's called Hellstrom, and I play the devil.
Oh, very.
Because the cool thing about my work is it's like psychic travel. I get to go all over the place for free and without any, chemical side effects.
Yeah.
I get to drop into all kinds of states of being, which is why I love doing what I do. But that's also amazing. Because of that, I can remember, I'm going to close on it. This is also why I do what I do as an actor. And one of the reasons why I think sometimes what I do can be useful beyond one's own self-interest is I can remember when I was younger, a lot of parts that I would play in the theater were very women in extremis, a lot of just women out of their mind, on the edge, falling apart, or killers. And my mom came to visit me, and I was playing a killer, a serial killer, and she was like, "Why do you do this? Why can't you?" And I remember thinking, for you is why I do it, so you can have a way to approach this state of being. You can have a door into it, that it's not just shut. Is part of the reason why I tell the stories I get to tell.
That's really beautiful, because you're playing a lot of things, right, that you oppose or don't really want to be associated with, right?
Well, it's it's another organization I work with is Theater of War, and we go around to military bases, military families, and do this, like Ajax by Sophocles.
Oh, interesting.
And so even though I'm a pacifist, I've had the great fortune of working with so many warriors and warriors' families and female warriors, and hearing their stories and being able to hold their story and their feelings is remarkable. Do I personally agree with war? Okay, no.
Hell no. Yeah.
Do I want to hold and help and facilitate warriors and their families? Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a great honor and a great part of my life to support and help military families.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I mean, life is not black and white. It's so full of nuances, and we've got to like always be holding all those things in tension, right? I find myself all the time in conversations like that, where around pacifism or war or hunting or, we're vegan, like all these different things, right? And it's like, well, yeah, life is so nuanced, like to the nth degree. We've got to be okay with all that nuance and making community and loving and serving people that we don't oppose them. We oppose maybe parts of who they are and what they believe, but they are a whole human being that deserves love and care and affection. And hopefully our relationship, your relationship with warriors and with soldiers can help influence them toward right? It's this slow tugging toward a more pacifistic lifestyle, because God, are we not wanting to pursue peace? Like, do we want to stay in a perpetual state of war? The United States with 600 military bases around the world. Like, that's insane. We need to work toward a future where that's like all pulled back, even if we can't do away with it completely,
That's right.
So,
and the only constant that is true in life, as we know, is change.
Yeah. Wild. Well, Elizabeth Marvel, thank you so much for spending time with us today. You've been so generous with your time. I hope we can do it again around a bunch of other things.
It's been a pleasure, man. Been a pleasure.
Well, friends, there you have it. That's the show today. An incredible thank you to Elizabeth Marvel for joining me, for joining us. So much to learn from her. My goodness. Don't forget to watch her brand new show on Hulu, October 16, Hellstrom. Visit letsgiveadamn.fm for resources and links and all that jazz. And thank you for listening. Seriously, I say this every week. I mean it every week. I'm honored that you listen to me talk with wonderful people week in and week out. This episode was edited and produced by Chad Snavely and the team at Sound On, Sound Off. Let's Give a Damn is part of the Matter Media family. You can reach out to me anytime, hello@letsgiveadamn.com. Text me anytime, 646-328-6414. Sending love and peace to each one of you. Stay safe, keep giving a damn, and until next time, peace.